welcome to this is one, I've been making a lot of maps lately, so I wanna make a couple of animations applied with sound source tutorials, right? So this is Saint the Legend, and this is, currently people have been complaining about my tutorials not being on topic, or like, who else does tutorials besides, the original tutorials? Premier Bog has a FPS tutorial, which he never finished yet. He should finish it, I think he did, but I'm not sure. Not a lot of developers do tutorials, like, not a lot of people are really open with their game creation stuff, you know what I'm saying? It's usually, like, privatized, because it takes a long time to make these sort of things. Like, I tried live streaming it the other day, and it took 6 hours just to edit a portion of my map. And that was 6 hours. I wasn't doing it straight. I was just, having a bite to eat, doing my daily chores while doing that. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, it's a long process. You gotta understand, making websites, making games is a long process. Remember, you have to make the 3D models. Right? I know this is going off topic, but as I load this up, I gotta talk about something, right? You gotta, you could code everything from scratch, but if you're not optimized to do that sort of thing yet, you could always use programs, you know what I mean? Like Maya, ZBrush, 3ds Max for your 3D models and particle effects, right? After Effects. But you need 3D particle effects, right? So you need to create the particle effects, which fire, wind, clouds. But that stuff, some of the stuff is usually based within the engine itself. So most of the engines nowadays are open source, like the Unreal, the Cry engine. Well, not really the Cry engine. They still want some money, but they're giving you an offer, a bid up front. And then you also need some sound editing softwares. There's usually sound editing softwares built inside the engine. But here, what I want to show you, see, I made The Walking Dead Season 1, Clementine's Neighborhood, right? This took maybe about 48 hours, something like that. No. About 200 plus hours, so that's like a week, I think? Something like that, right? And so, in the Trials editor, most of the stuff is already available to you, like planes, you know what I mean? Right? And, trees and tires. But see, the good thing about the Trials editor is kind of like any other editor, really, is the models are already there for you, but the models are divided into pieces, right? So, I have to still build to make a house in a sort of way. It's obviously a lot easier to model this in a 3D art program because the models are better, and plus you'll have less polys to deal with. If I fucking, do a bunch of these object blues and object groups, I'll have more polys to deal with. That's more stuff on the camera to render at once. Remember, depending on which camera, is you would need some sort of thing. Obviously the trial editor ain't perfect. Like the invisible walls should have some sort of transparency setting to it so I could see through them, because it is an invisible wall and it really gets in the way of building. Also, like the trigger boxes needs to be some sort of transparency. The original Trials had that setting. This one does not. I don't know why. Maybe a mistake. They should probably like patch it with a little setting. Object groups, some objects don't have collision and some do. These are all object groups. So in the end of the day, they're kind of like my own assets, but they're groups. It's not really game design, because in game design, remember, you have to make the pole, then you have to apply the texture to the pole, wrapping texture, and then you could animate it in however way you want, right? So one way I'm going to do here is I have a door opening animation. It's obviously a glued object with a glass and a frame. the animation is animated at position Z, but problem is I wanted the animation to be exact, so I applied it with a variable data source, and I did it negative 1.60. Okay, that's the value. So it's going to go this way, 1.60, and I can adjust the time, how fast it goes. The more time you put in the duration, the slower it gets, the less time, the faster it gets. So I put it 2 seconds. It's going to take 2 seconds from point A to go to point B, right? And that's how you do basic animations, you know what I'm saying? Obviously animations can be tied with physics, but in Trials there's only one physics bubble, and you can only increase, and the more you increase it, the more lag you have. So it's not that good. So the physics part of this is not that great. You could always animate the physics bubble, but that just gets in the way. So in Trials, you want to learn how to animate physical objects in the background. You have to get good enough to animate them as a physical object. Or if you're close enough to the physics bubble, you could do physics on and off to not generate as much lag, to apply the gravity like realistic gravity or whatever gravity in the set environment you want to try to achieve, right? So this yaw is, I have a fan in the room, and that's yaw, and that's 360 degrees rotation and 10 seconds per 360 degrees. Okay, so it's a slow spin fan. It's going to be, so how this setup works, I just use the trigger. I use the trigger for my game character, object instances. To my game character, it will highlight blue to give you a visual cue that I selected it. Then I will say object instances again. Instances, not types, because if it's types, it will select any object of that type. Object instances to the joint connected to the door. Remember. Now, this is not an on-active trigger, so we are going to definitely disable after hit. You could also do on active and on leave and on inactive too if you want to go. I also have that in here. When you go inside of a room, the sound will turn off, and then the sound will turn off, but be mind and be aware, if you have too many on active and on leave objects at the same time, it can cause tremendous lag. That's one of my mistakes here. You can customize the tolerance. Remember, the sound of the door, I modified the pitch volume with that, so the sound of the door to open. After the door will open, we know it's 2 seconds, so we said after 2 seconds, the door wouldn't slide, right? And that's all on an active trigger. The same thing with the gate here. I can show you the code. It's hidden in the corner there. After a game is done, you want to have a bunch of chain events, delayed impulses by the camera, and you can create a chain of events. Remember, in Trials and in video game design in general, it's all about chain of events. So what you need to do is you need to write it down or process in your mind how this chain of event is going to happen. The player is going to, in this event, we have a player is going to trigger a zone that's then going to trigger a bunch of events to happen at once at a time slap. You know what I'm saying? So I activate a bunch of delayed impulses with multi-chain contact events that will generate just a bunch of events that happen at the same time. Multi-chain active event chain. So, and then you could organize these how you want. Make sure you organize them or you get mixed up and screwed up, because this can get very complicated very quickly. I have a bunch of following animations for each wheel. I have to apply each joint for each wheel. I could show you this in a second right now. So as soon as our Walking Dead game starts, and those buttons you see right there, those are programmable buttons. You have to actually input some codes offered by Red Links on the Red Links forums. You know, the door opens. You have to push the car out of the way. See the wheels and the car are moving at the same time. And then the car moves, the wheels turn, the wheels are going to turn as the car turns, and it's gone. A simple but yet complicated animation, right? Something's invisible, we'll highlight in the sky. So I know these look like a bunch of numbers. This is just a number showing you that it's following the desired coordinates. Following animations, make sure it's not local, it's not on X, Y, and Z to desired position, to the vector point towards the joint. Make sure you select, when you point all the vectors to the joints, make sure you point all the vectors to the joints before gluing it to the actual structure. You're going to have selectual problems. You know, you can't select them because the object is too small and it's in the big ass glue group. You won't be able to select. By default, it's 1 tick, 16 milliseconds, 1 tick. You can select it a lot lower than that, but I wouldn't recommend it. The frames would jump. And this is all keyframe animations. You need to be able to get comfortable. This is a swinging animation with object following the wheel for extra collision. So I won't go through the object because wheel collisions are programmed very poorly. And then you have this just a swinging animation, and the joint is up here. I'll take it apart so it will swing off this desired position. The total complexity isn't that high, but if you have too many objects in one area in a Trials game, it can get very laggy. But if it's in a 3D game experience, the lag is actually not there unless there's too much. The trees around the perimeter are decoration only, meaning that they don't have no physical body or collision. Well, they do have a visible shape, but you know what I mean. You gotta be careful with the light sources within the room. And that's basically how you make a bunch of active triggers. I'm gonna show you another example. I don't know if that was clear. I will load up another intensified map. So this is a Metroid Prime map already. I think it is called, we're gonna show two of them real quick. I won't make the video too long. Let's show them temple grounds. So these were made by myself. I sometimes get tips and pointers from the community. But these are usually built by myself. There's a bunch of invisible collisions. This is an object glue. It's an object group, a code group, to demonstrate a subdivision for each category. So this is a pink, purplish collectible that will give you like a set amount of points. So I usually like to group them and just place them around. And then, yeah, those are like Metroid Prime collectibles. These are the doors. There's a lot of code outside. Let's see if I can find it here. Okay, so it is a lot. So I think all of this right here, all of this code right here, is definitely for the crane and all the import animations, any following animations or sound source links or button presses on active, on disabled triggers. They can speak here. There is a lot to explain. There is invisible walls above the map, so people can cheat. That's the best way to counteract that situation. Again, the invisible walls are pretty lame because you can't see that well. And the Metroid Prime Max take a lot of complexity, so it's very very hard to navigate. These type of maps usually take a couple of weeks to a month each to create, even though I'm copying it straight from another screen from my Wii U console. And then you have a spaceship, glued, or not really glued, just a bunch of pieces all linking towards each other. You saw some particle effects right there. And then you have a couple of animations here for the door, following animations and different types of animations with different sound sources, on and off, on active, you know, just different types of animations, just to show you how complicated some of this stuff can be. You know what I'm saying? If you want to get into making, don't get overwhelmed by this. This should be like an inspirational idea if you want to make certain stuff happen. I like to make environments. I like to make a lot of environments on Trials Fusion based on games I love, like Metroid Prime, The Walking Dead. I just love animations. I love sound sources. I like making my own 3D environments. So I make these. So now I'm giving you like a taste and see how it's done behind the scenes. Torvus Bog was the longest one I made. It was 4 weeks, a month. I want to show you Sanctuary Fortress. I can't find it. Did I pass it? My current health condition right now makes these a little bit difficult to construct, but I gotta do something. Alright. So there'll probably be some music in the background so it's not so boring when I edit this video. So this map is maxed out complexity, completely maxed out. A bunch of animations. These are invisible walls. Hardcore object glues. Sometimes it's really hard to see when you edit. So there are a bunch of like editing menu buttons and stuff. So if it gets too complicated and you can't see what you're doing, you could do a statistics overlay overview and hide connectors so it's a little more cleaner to navigate. And when you navigate the objects correctly, you can go into coding again for object scripting. So these are just remember, I don't have to I make one group and it's all automatically done. This map took me 2 weeks. Don't get overwhelmed by the code. The surface down on the bottom, what you've seen, that's a trigger area, a fall area. All these arrows are some flashing light animations, or you can call them animations, but I just call them frame by frame. Light on, light off. You know, when you go through the map, we have more animations in here in this room. There's a bunch here. A lot of time and creativity went into making my favorite Metroid Prime level, Sanctuary Fortress. Now we have the coding room with all the programmable lifts. This is where Badger and Shogun, well, it's not their fault. I should have OP'd my character to the lift. I was too lazy. And then we have a more coding here. Go through the wall here. Some, like in the Halo editor, you can't go through the walls, which just gets pretty nerve-wracking. You know what I'm saying? That a collision should be only active within the playtest. Okay. You know. And that is it. I hope this was very interesting and very helpful to you guys. That this is one complicated map. Yeah, so this is Sanctuary Fortress. I'll take a custom screenshot of this map. And that is it. Hopefully that was useful. And I probably did went too fast, but it doesn't matter. Alright, I'm Saint Legend, I'm out. Stay tuned for more of my maps. I'll be making more Metroid Prime maps and what I can do.